Okay, everyone, welcome. This is my first interview on my new Facebook page for Shana East interviews. I was doing a show on WCPT called To the Left, which just ended in May. And now I'm going to be doing some one-off interviews with folks that are about subjects that come up, in my life and activists I know. And there's nothing more timely right now in Illinois than the new cannabis legalization bill that is it still on Pritzker's desk right now? Not signed yet, Donte?
Yeah, not signed yet, so we still got some fingers crossed.
So to that end, we have Donte Townsend here. He is the communications director for Chicago NORML, and that is the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. He has been working for many years on this issue, and now it's culminated to this point, and I thought it would be important to check in with him. We met initially when he was a guest on the radio show To the Left, introduced to me by the National Political Director of NORML, Justin Streckel. Shout out to him. So Donte, can you just talk for a minute about your role with Chicago NORML, what you do, and how you initially got started in this fight?
Most definitely. I initially got started in this fight trying to find my way in the cannabis industry once I had learned that Illinois was once going to allow medical cannabis. So I was very serious about finding some employment and trying to use the tasks and the skills that I had already had instilled in me as far as my natural love for farming and wanting to learn how to grow cannabis, using extractions or whatnot. So I really wanted to find out how can I carve my way into this industry, trying to find employment and just trying to find different organizations that kind of felt like it had hit the close to home aspects into the future of legalization of what I wanted to see from having those types of resources on the south side of Chicago was something that was very important to me, and discovering that there was no outlets. Me and the other group of cannabis advocates and cannabis business professionals, we all came together and we established Chicago NORML, and we specifically did that to try to open up the access and just to engage with the community and create a culture around a group of hardworking, dedicated people that didn't want to see the industry, I guess, go down the drain by being corporatized. To be honest,
Yeah.
with it being legal here in Illinois, we just wanted to really, I guess, shape the culture in a sense. Once the discussion became available.
And you had previously worked in a dispensary. This wasn't your first career move in the industry. You actually were previously working in it before NORML, correct?
Correct, yes. Before Chicago NORML, I was working with Windy City Cannabis, which is a dispensary that has 4 locations in Chicago.
And when you were in those rooms where folks were talking about legalization, what was that like? Did you see other folks that looked like you in these conversations, or how was that?
It was, to be honest, or at that time, 2018, 2017, it was real strange for me to be in a room with so many different people that were actively in a business that I had nothing that I knew about or even a location. So I felt like I was in the top secret meeting half of the time, and I was the only black guy in the room.
Mhm.
And everyone questioned was, so how'd you get here? Or how'd you find out about this? Or why isn't there more black people here? Or wouldn't you think that minorities would want to be involved in this, considering that it possibly could be legal? And those were questions that I often found myself asking, like, why aren't there more people here? Or why isn't it more people that would love to get involved, especially since it's something that's not hidden, that it's legal or whatnot. They talk about it all the time on the news, or at least it being medically legal. So I found a lane that no one really was trying to, go full speed in, and I wanted to involve as many people as I could.
And this process to come to this point where, you know, we have this bill on the governor of Illinois' desk has been a long process. And during these past several years, what has Chicago NORML's role, if anything, been in that process?
Well, I would say that we have started and sparked the conversation that the governor kind of focused his point of legalizing cannabis was for minority inclusion and social justice. Those are some of the things that we kind of really carried. It's even in our motto with our four marks was a social injustice, you know, just a complete reform of the laws that were currently in place, and to really monitor the ones that were going to be set forth with legalization. So, you know, most definitely, I would have to say that you know, we really try to keep our thumbs down and our eyes peeled for anything that included inclusion and social equity.
Mm-hmm. So this bill, HB 1438, the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act, was proposed by Senator Stearns and Rep. Kelly Cassidy. Reading through it, it looks, you know, pretty comprehensive. I know during the negotiation process, some things were lost, but what positives do you see out of this bill?
Overall, and the positives that I do see, there are the possibility to be able as an entrepreneur to enter the cannabis space under the new licensing structure, so that they have craft grow licenses, they have infuser licenses, they have a transportation license, and it's a lot of different ways that they've set aside for social equity applicants, which are people who fit a certain criteria as far as income, people that have lived in certain neighborhoods that were infected by the war on drugs, people that may have even been arrested for cannabis offenses. Those new applicants would be able to come in at a certain at a lower barrier to entry by paying half of the non-refundable fees, which is something that a lot of people could benefit from. Even more, they also set up a fund for these social equity applicants to have access to capital. Some of the loans, you know, they're low interest loans, or some of them are even grants. So there are opportunities to get your foot in the door. Now, the question is, the opportunity to have a foot in the door, you know, should we be grateful that that foot in the door is such a small scale, it being having limitations on the amount that you're actually able to grow, to when you look at, you know, actually trying to be able to compete. And that's one of the biggest things that I feel as minorities. Is one thing to have a chance to have a foot in the door, but how can we really compete when the sizes that they're actually allowing us to have are maybe an eighth of what they're capable of growing? Especially once you know, legalization occurs, they'll be able to expand and utilize more of their growth space.
So that leads me to the next question. I was going to ask where you think it falls short, and it seems like you were starting to answer that, but if you want to.
Oh yeah, I think that it falls short on a couple different things, and I guess it really pertains to how you look at it. To me personally, I felt that it fell short. First, I'll start with the expungement issues. The expungement efforts that they had put place in this bill are okay to me when you're looking at it from okay, well, 30 grams or less, they'll be automatically expunged, which is usually the typical amount that a person would have for personal use, which would be about an ounce or less per se. But just say some people may have more than that, you know, because a lot of people, it takes more than an ounce sometimes to make different things. A lot of people don't use cannabis just to smoke. Some people use it for edibles. Some people use it for topicals. There are a lot of different.
It's cheaper to buy more at a time.
Exactly, and it's cheaper to buy more at a time. So
if you don't have a lot of money, you might want to buy a little more.
Yeah, or you might have more money in one time period than the next. So at the end of the day, I feel that with the way that they're advertising this end of prohibition and legalization, it isn't really true legalization, because, you know, if you had a little weed, we'll expunge your record. But if you had a lot of weed, you got to go through this process and this, that, and the third. companies that are operating now don't sell a little bit of weed. So, they sell a lot of bit of weed. So they should be able to let people out and expunge those records of people regardless of what size limitations that they have had for convictions. And that's just the expungement part that I personally feel about. The licensing, I feel that is an issue for the dispensaries that are currently operating. They have a heads up in getting licenses for recreational, if available and if ready for purchasing. Meaning that just say a dispensary may have 2 licenses. So when it becomes legal January 1st, they're able to get an additional 2 if they have the means to, establish 2 more dispensaries, which they do since they've been operating for so long and been making so much money, and when you look at it like that, it gives the dispensaries, because it's 55 licensed dispensaries here in Illinois, meaning that it'll be an additional 55 licenses that'll be given out. And then what that does is give the current operators an advantage to locations, especially when you look at where the dispensaries are located now. They're really not in any minority neighborhoods, anywhere on the south side, the east side, or whatnot. So you look at where they're already located, and then you have to take into consideration the zoning and the spacing between other dispensaries, meaning that they'll expand into minority neighborhoods and there won't be any real social equity by them owning 100% of all dispensaries. You know what I mean? And those dispensaries will only be put in minority neighborhoods because they can't put them next to the ones that they're already next to. They're going to expand and put them in the minority communities. And these communities won't benefit off of that at all from any standpoint.
And the last time we talked about this, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you said that all the dispensaries in Chicago are on the north side and that there were no licenses at all on the south side. Is that correct?
Correct, not on the south side. Now they have there are a few different dispensaries that are further south suburb, Homewood, Posen, some out, Joliet, out those ways. But as far as where most of the arrests or records occur within the South Side communities, Auburn, Gresham, Inglewood, South Shore, all of these communities, even Pilsen, from the Hispanic communities or whatnot. All of these minority communities, there aren't any dispensaries, but there will be some soon, coming forward with these dispensaries being able to have an advantage of when they take away the zoning laws, they have more of an opportunity to expand their reach, where with the medical program before they weren't allowed to.
And what are the hiring, if you know anything about this, are they going to be hiring folks from those neighborhoods, or how? There's no guarantee on that. I'm assuming.
Now, to be honest, how real social equity breaks down, how they do it in Oakland, because Illinois, they studied a lot of the different states and seen what worked and what didn't work. And me personally, I feel like one of the biggest things that should be in place with social equity is not only people from the community being the first people to get these new licenses that should be awarded in these impacted areas, these DIAs. They really should be the ones that get these licenses first. If you go to one of these minority communities, it shouldn't be an outside business from somewhere in California or somewhere in Colorado or somewhere that's based in Michigan that comes to a minority community in the south or east or west side of Chicago, open up shop, bring in all of their people that don't live in the community, and make all this money from the community and don't give back to the community. Mm-hmm. And just with the way that things are structured, I see that happening. That's not real social equity. A lot of times these companies look at social equity as, we're going to hire a black guy and we're going to give him a job, but that black guy is nowhere from the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Millions of dollars would be made in these dispensaries, but pennies won't even go back out unless it's toward advertisements or campaigns to bring more money in to the dispensaries. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's by creating these outreach programs, which are pretty much just, hey, come shop with us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not really about, what the real message should be. A minority, to me personally, a minority ownership within its own community is a chance for the communities to not only be able to have safe product, but a dispensary in a minority community, to me, should represent a key to revitalization. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Those dollars, at least percentage, should go directly back. People from that community, not saying you got to go hire, a gangbanger and an ex-felon and this, that, and the third. It's highly motivated and intellectual people that have a genuine interest and a passion for this field. You know what I mean? And half of the time, those people are the guys that are out here selling the drugs or selling the
Mm-hmm.
cannabis, shall I say. You know what I mean? And I believe that these are the people that should have the first fair shot at this. Maybe that may be a dream social equity world, but that's how I personally feel like it should have been. But I feel like there's room to expand, and it's all about what they've given us. They've given minorities an opportunity to legally get into the industry, and now it's up for minorities to take the advantage of what's been given to us and blow it out the water. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Looking at the bill, they talk about revenue distribution. And, they talk about a certain percent going to education, to local government, this R3 program, 20% to mental health, 10% to unpaid bills. Some actually goes to law enforcement. Interesting. Do you know anything about, is that distributed in the communities that have been impacted by the war on drugs, or how do they determine that, if you know?
Now that right there specifically goes to that R3, the Recover, Reinvest, and Renew program, which used to be formerly the ROC program. Now that's really key, because if you look at these, the way that the revenue breaks down, out of 100%, 25 is a quarter, and when we're talking about potentially hundreds of millions of dollars, that's a lot of fucking money.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a lot of money. Sorry for that.
That's okay. We're
a
not
lot
on
of
the
money.
radio anymore, so you can swear.
Oh yeah, that's a lot of fucking money. You know what I mean? And when you look at the structure of the R3 program, when you really break down this bill, the R3 program has a board of, I believe, 8 or 9 people, and they're all, Illinois state position holders. The minority leader of the Senate, the state's attorney. It's a couple different people, but in reality, it's a board of mostly Republican white people. And when you look at what this is supposed to serve, when you break down the ROC program, it really is going towards research, and it's going towards violence prevention programs such as Ceasefire, which is a program that Heather Steen's husband has a hand in. So when you kind of, like, well, what are we really doing? Like, are we a test subject, or are we really trying to fix some shit with the money that we're making from this? You know what I mean? Because the social equity program itself is something that will be conducted, monitored, and studied, and have also, I believe, in 2023 somewhere, it read in the bill, they're going to go back and check to see if it met certain quotas or if it performed at the level that it was supposed to perform. So you got to look at all of these things that are being put in place when they talk about social equity. And is it really social equity, or is it take these crumbs and let's see if you can make some bread? And if you can't, are we going to snatch it from you? You know what I mean? And are you setting us up for the snatch? You know what I mean?
We really need to, everything to be transparent and really like understand how this all works. That's why I'm like reading all this stuff in detail, because it's complicated.
Yeah, I believe it's 610 pages or some shit like that.
And I think people are just like, yes, we're going to get high, and, don't care
that's
about
a big
details.
That's one of the biggest things that I hate, because they push tourism in Chicago, and the gaming is going to be here, and people come to Chicago to do this and do that, and cannabis is going to be legal. When you come to Chicago and legally, or you come to Illinois and legally purchase cannabis, we don't have social consumption, which means that you can't buy your cannabis and smoke it anywhere unless it's somewhere that's like a private home or something that's like that. If you rented a hotel, you can't be able to smoke cannabis there. If you're out in public or outside somewhere, you can't smoke cannabis there. Like, there are no places to safely consume your cannabis. You could legally go purchase some cannabis and get locked up for it. You know what I mean?
If you have a kid, if you have someone under 21 in your home, you could be technically arrested if you're smoking
Yeah.
pot in the same house, because that's another part of the bill that
Yeah,
I.
yeah. The way that they kind of worded that is like,
Yeah.
minors can't be present in the home, but it's like, well, shit. Some minors could possibly have a medical cannabis card as well.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Due to some of the conditions under the medical program. So it's very choppy. But at least I would say that out of all of the states, Illinois did take the initiative to add certain things in there to take the step. And I believe it's up to organizations like Chicago NORML to make sure that not only they implement or basically put their money where their mouth is, but they leave room for us to grow and expand within the laws and the bill that they set forth. And I think that that's what's important, other than just, okay, we'll take this and no one really takes advantage of it.
Mhm. Another question I have is, I know a lot of folks who have been in the industry for a long time, the black market, not the legal industry, but what do you, I'm not assuming you know folks in the business, but if you do, what is going to happen to them? Do they have any into
I,
this industry, or are they just out of work?
I'll be transparent and say I know a lot of people in the black market, per se, the black market. I don't even really like using that term. Is people trying to survive? But honestly, that's one of the reasons why Chicago NORML was invented, for people that's in that industry to make a merge over into the legal side. At the end of the day, as a whole, people have to move forward and understand business. It's people that are operating and making more money than a lot of these companies that are operating legally. And it has to come to a point to where they need to be educated and learn how can they transition into this former black market into what's to become. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Really, these types of applicants that are eligible to get these licenses are really that demographic of people. You know what I mean? So it's time for people to be, like I say, educated on what's to come, the opportunities, raising the capital, and being educated as far as how to conduct business is one of the biggest things. A lot of people ask me all the time, and it's mostly people that live that lifestyle. How can we get in on this, or how can I get a dispensary? You got to educate yourself on the bills, on the laws, on the language of the laws, and how you can implement an actual business plan into what's to come. You know what I mean? So
A
hopefully
lot
they
of
look
those
at.
folks have those skills though, but it's just like they can't bring their resume over to, some billionaire that's opening, this major plant
Yeah,
or whatever, and be like, hey, I've been doing this for 30 years. Like, here's my resume. I mean,
right. Yeah, and that's the shitty part, because then it becomes how do you get a major cannabis job, and how do you display that I have these experiences without uh you know telling on yourself, pretty much, you know what I mean? And then that comes down to a networking situation. You obviously wouldn't be able to apply for one of these jobs displaying your illegal skills, but you can put yourself in a room full of professional people that have the access to sitting someone at a desk in front of someone and giving the opportunity to possess those, to display those skills. You know what I mean? Um, the,
I also think that like movies, people think of drug dealers as like Scarface. They're like rolling in millions of dollars. They have so
right.
much money. I think people just think, oh, those folks, they have all this money. They can just go, get a license or whatever. But a lot of people that are doing this work now, they're just, getting by. They're not rolling in
Well,
dough. They're not selling, worse drugs that are really addictive. They
right.
just mostly deal with cannabis. They just, they might be parents or students or what.
Exactly. And half of the time when you look at people that like I say, that are involved in that lifestyle, they may be successful at selling cannabis, but when you look at the situation, that's just one person that may represent a house full of kids, out of work mother or wife, out of work, siblings, any of that. At the end of the day, you got to look at the communities that these people come from as a whole. They're not selling drugs to be with the iced out chains, and maybe these people are trying to put food in their refrigerator, pay bills, take care of kids, and all of that at the end of the day. So, you know,
Plus, we
it's
have to reduce the stigma, because just because these folks were selling when it was illegal doesn't mean that they're bad drug dealers. And then these people over here who are selling it when it's legal are the smart
for
entrepreneurs.
real. We're
Like,
the
these
businessman.
people were actually smart entrepreneurs too, in many
Exactly.
ways.
Exactly.
So,
They just didn't have the lawyers.
yeah.
They just didn't have the lawyers to put them
Understandable.
in play.
Couple more things and then I want to wrap up, because I know you have so many things to do now that you're all in the news and everything.
I got as much time as you need me to have for you. You don't have to wrap it up. We can go for another
um,
30.
I wanted to ask for the folks who understand, that so many people have been in prison and just for having, these minor drug offenses for years and years and years, and people that understand that this win is supposed to be about them and not about just like woohoo getting high. What can we do to push this forward and make this law even more progressive and impact those folks greater, and make sure that those people, this never happens again, first of all, and that those people are free and
Right. That's, they always mention that when they talk about the bill, and they always talk about, well, this is, the first time we're going to visit it. We can go back and do this. Nothing is promised. You know what I mean? Me personally, I feel like we needed to ask for any and everything currently right now, because we don't know what the hell is going to happen after this gets passed, after it goes legal, the initial success of it, how people, how people gravitate to it, individuals afterwards. So I really feel like, you know, it's just something that we need to really take seriously in consideration. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's making me nervous that if you have more than 30 grams, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I, haven't had a good source of information. I've been piecing things together through multiple sources, but it seems like the governor is a gatekeeper. Like, it's
He
not
is.
automatic. It's that it's up to them to expunge in many of these cases. And what happens when we have a Republican governor? What happens there? That's what I'm saying. It's not
Right,
sufficient that it's like goes through this middle person, this gatekeeper.
right. And anything can happen to him at any point in time, especially him being investigated and shit like that. So that's a very good question. And the language really speaks whole to that. I spoke on this earlier before with someone else. As far as the expungement process, it's automatic. It's automatic if it's 30 grams or under. But anything past that, an ounce and up, it's like, well, what, you got to go through this whole process, and the governor, you got to talk to. It's already, it's already that type of situation now for expungement. When in reality, when really you go through the decrim bill that's already in play. But like you say, I really hate the fact that the governor would have to be involved in that, and the whole entire process. That deters people from even wanting to go get anything expunged. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
half of the people that expunges, that affects, is just, it affects so many different people. There may be this amount of people that have had personal cannabis possession arrest that is really messing up the records or whatnot. I'm not going to play it down or anything like that, but there are a vast amount of people that's doing time currently right now that have maybe 50. It doesn't have to be 5,000 grams or whatever. It may have been more than 30, but that doesn't make this person more of a criminal because you got this, or you're going to have to go through this process. And even more, it's at his discretion to pardon it or not. You know what I mean? And how will they determine that? Like, you have to
Yeah,
look at all
like,
those things.
yeah,
And,
that's
and
really
half of the
sketchy.
time, he won't even have the time to see half of that shit. You know what I mean? Like, if he really had hundreds of applications coming in and people coming in, like, you don't have time to see none of that shit. So in reality, like, you're really going to be spending that much time pardoning these cannabis offenses one by one. And those
Yeah,
people
I
are going
mean,
to
you
be
won't
left
have time to do
behind.
anything else.
Right,
They'll just be sitting there expunging all day long.
right. And then that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that is what makes me nervous, is that aspect. Definitely. I don't know what change needs to be done. The thing that makes me nervous is it feels like once this is signed and everyone celebrates, I feel like it's going to be really hard to make change.
Yeah, I think
Unless,
I think that
some time passes and then they realize there's areas that they, see that they want to improve upon, but like everyone seems fine with the way that this is. Everyone's celebrating right now. All the
everyone
representatives.
everyone's eating the cheese right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's I feel like that as well. But I guess in the whole process of making this bill, there had to be a lot of sacrifices that some people felt necessary or felt that it was worth taking overall. And there's so many different hands that were in this bill as far as people that it kind of affected. So that's why it took so long, in my opinion. Um, that's why it was so many debates as far as what's what. A lot of people felt a certain way about the homegrown being limited to just patients. I feel like that's a win for the medical patient community. I feel like that's something that should have been in play because it will cause a lot of issues with, determining who can actually home grow just because it's adult use, and how can you determine this from that, and people doing it for recreation. I can,
Mhm.
the medical community deserves the right to home grow and for that to be specifically for them. I agree with that because, working in a dispensary, so people going through some real serious shit and they could save a lot of money by being able to grow at home, and even just the comfort and the relaxation from doing that is just, for some people it would be therapy even. But when you go through the home grow bill, it's still a little bullshit because the way that they write the language for the plants and they have to be 5 inches tall. It's like, y'all really, who's going to grow a baby
Five
plant? And that be
inches?
it. Yeah, 5 inches from the ground, and like what they kind of how they worded it.
Have
If you
they
go
even
to,
seen a pot plant before? 5 inches?
you
What?
know what I mean? They want the bud. They want your plant just to have a nice bud on it and take that off. Thank you. They want you to be able
Oh,
to grow. They want you to be able to grow an eighth and nothing more than that.
yeah, so a lot of very wealthy people are licking their chops right now with all this. My last thing that I want to ask before we wrap up is what's next for Chicago NORML? What are you guys going to do now?
There is a lot of room and opportunity for gearing up anyone that is interested in learning the process of how do I get my shit together and go after one of these licenses. I can't say that that's one of the things that we're really going to be pushing, but that's what people want to know, and that's our purpose of how do we get people into this industry that don't know the know-how. So there's a lot of room for educating people on what they need to do. That's really one of our main purposes, is for education. So just gearing people in the right direction to prepare themselves to how to properly purchase and go about your day when legalization does occur and people are able to actually consume properly, like they have concealed carry. Chicago still don't look like a wild wild west legally, right? You know what I mean? It's not, you don't see 1,000 people with handguns concealing. It's not like that. You still have people that are going to go to the black market. You still are going to have people that are going to the dispensaries, but still operating improperly. So
Well,
it's really
also
just,
with the taxes, it might be cheaper.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. But that's a benefit of being a patient as well, too, though. The tax benefits and everything. So there's a lot of give and take in this bill, but overall, politics is politics, and I feel like, I guess you could say, as a speaker on this topic, representative for the minority community, it's a chance for us to show up and show out. You know what I mean? You've given us an opportunity, and now it's time to take full advantage of it and blow some of these big guys out of the water.
mm-hmm. And if people want to check out what your Chicago NORML is up to, where can they go?
So we are on every platform: Chicago NORML, NORML, NORML. And we are on Facebook. We're on Instagram, chicagonormal.org. We have dispensary agent training programs. We are actively involved in the legislation process. Just at our last meeting that we have our meeting the first Sunday of every month at Soul and Wellness. At our last meeting, we had everybody. We broke the bill down in 6 categories and had everybody there break down what's actually in this bill. And it was interesting to see that our executive director, Edie Moore, had us kind of like in a bill boot camp. So, we actually got the people involved, and a lot of them was coming through there and like, wait, what does this say? Like, what is this? And people can actually not just listen for the news to hear what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Chicago NORML, we're doing a lot as far as advocating and educating people on what's to come and how to prepare themselves for what's to come to be able to be a successful entrepreneur. Yep.
Nice.
And I'm actually something that's new and it's kind of off topic of cannabis, but in the same field. I'm actually licensed for hemp processing, and I've partnered with the company. So I'll be diving into the industrial hemp market and bringing a lot of the rural farmers that are downstate Illinois, converting those crops that they're planting, their soybeans and corn, converting them to hemp. So we can get some of these downstate farmers that should have had an opportunity to get into the cannabis business to be able to thrive off of the hemp business. It's sad that the Illinois Department of Agriculture has X'd out almost every farmer and allowed all these corporations to come in and thrive off of medical cannabis when they've been doing it here for centuries, as far as the agriculture goes or whatnot. So I'll be jumping into the hemp with my own brand, Son of a Bud. That's my brand that I have for hemp processing and everything hemp. So I'll be bringing those resources to the south side of Chicago. We'll, working on something right now as far as getting some of these abandoned warehouses and converting those into farms and hiring people from the neighborhood to work those farms and using that money to also just, try to reestablish some real community stores. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Bring some food and some jobs to these fucked up neighborhoods out here.
Yeah. Well, we also all need to be conscious also of climate change. If we're all going to be growing all this stuff, we got to, take care of the planet as well. And
that's, believe it or not, I don't know if you know, but hemp actually produces fresh CO2, fresh oxygen.
I did know that, actually.
Yeah, that's what we need to be growing. Fuck the cannabis. Let's grow some of this hemp and change the world with that.
On that note, I'm going to say goodnight, my friend, and thank you for being my first interviewee on my new format.
Oh, I'm the first?
Yep, you're my first. So thank you. I'll get the word out.
Much love. It's beyond a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, now, much love.
Good work, and stay in touch.
You too.
Bye.